Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get right to it. If it's your first time, know that we usually pick a topic, but we're always able to answer your questions as we go as well. So if you are wanting to ask a question, type it in the chat below and we'll address it from there. But for tonight's topic, we're first going to hit up post-race blues, and it's a real thing. And it's we're going to go around the coaches and they're going to share kind of how they deal with post-race blues, some of the tips and tricks. And then after that, we're going to also talk about post-race recovery and how can you get back to feeling good after doing an Ironman specifically, because a lot of us have just done that. So I'm going to go around the coaches. A bunch of them are going to be weighing in. Charlie, Lawrence, if you want to get us going.
Yeah, so I guess so for all of us, we all train very, very, very hard, especially like Ironman athletes. I just run. So I can't imagine doing a swim, bike, and a run for, 70.3 or a full Ironman. So and with that, you definitely kind of neglect a few things, or like I don't know if sacrifice is the right word, but you do some things that you wouldn't, because you're training so intensely, you don't necessarily do some things. So for me, what I do like post-race blues is I definitely enjoy like a beverage here and there. But when I do, I'll plan usually a brewery tour afterwards. I go to breweries with some of my best friends, just because you have nothing on the schedule, you're not sure what to do. So I'll usually just get out with my friends. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Me, I love craft beer, so I'll go hit up breweries, do that, or go to. I guess I don't eat much fast food either, really none. One thing I crave is Raising Cane's, especially post marathons. So that's something that I hit up to help with the blues. So that's kind of my quick hitters on post race blues. So.
Awesome. I think a lot of us can appreciate that. Always kind of having a reward post-race is a reason to enjoy that next week before hitting the training hard. So appreciate you sharing. Coach Alice, do you have anything to share on post-race blues?
Yeah, I'll say a few. I think first off, most importantly, to know that it's super, super normal to experience. I think just because you've worked so hard and put so much time into something, and then it's just kind of over, whether you did well or whether you did poorly, kind of everyone goes through it. I think of it like the day after Christmas, where you have all this hype and then it's over. So I think just being prepared that it might happen. So I personally always try to plan things out even before the race. So I always ask my husband to do a big dinner, the next week, so I can look forward to that. I do silly things that I don't necessarily have time to do during training. So I go and get my nails done, just little things like that, whether things that spark joy, go do that. Go get ice cream. Charlie likes to go to his breweries, just planning ahead, little things that, that spark joy. Other things that I personally do, I actually like to journal about my race day experience. I also journal about taper and how that went, because I can get pretty mental during taper, kind of being why are my legs feeling like this? Why do I don't know, feel like I'm still eating a ton? I don't know, little things like that. So writing that down, and then it's helpful for going into your next taper, just acknowledging the fact that maybe your taper was good, even though you weren't feeling great 4 days out of the race. I journal about the actual race experience, and I obviously write in Training Peaks to Natasha, because that not only kind of lets you celebrate the race you had, but it also sometimes will get you excited about the next race to come. And then it's not necessarily post-race blues, but really listen to your body. This is also about the recovery that we're going to talk about later. I think it's totally fine to sleep a ton if that's what you want or need, and then make sure that you're still eating a lot. Your body will want it, so eat when you want it. It's not a time to restrict yourself. It's more common to get sick after races, just because of stress hormones go up when you race, and then they kind of go down after. So making sure that you're sleeping a ton and eating a lot after, which also for me brings joy. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Coach. Guys, I'm going to jump in with just one thing before we move on to the next coach. A question I always ask myself is, am I depressed or am I just tired? So whenever I am feeling really kind of down, I don't react to it at all. I've learned not to react to it at all. And I just say, let me just back off on everything. Let me get a few more hours of sleep tonight and really just focus on recovery. And sure enough, in 2 days' time, when I am more rested, I come to find I'm actually not depressed. I'm just was really, really, really tired. So whenever you are in that state of mind, maybe focus on that, focus on the sleep and ask the same thing versus reacting. And then I'll come back to another one. I've got a few more. So I know Ashton wanted to weigh in today as well. Ashton?
Yeah, so I'll just say triathlon and running is a funny thing, because as soon as you cross the finish line, ultimately your mind automatically goes to, I should have done this, or I could have done this, and the next race I'm going to do this. And we never take that moment to actually celebrate what you just did. So definitely take that time. And then the next days after race, and this is something that I kind of struggle with, is that's whenever kind of that lull hits where you're feeling either sad or, you're overthinking things. And one thing that I always try to keep in mind is, like, if I'm having a negative thought or I'm having a negative emotion, I'm having that thought and emotion. I'm not defined by that thought or emotion. And so very similar to like Alice journaling, I'll write down whatever the negative thought is, like I had a crappy run, but my counter to that is I'm not a crappy person. Or, I think we can sometimes get into our head where it's like, oh, I'm automatically defined by all of these negative thoughts that I'm having or these negative emotions. And just reminding, like, you're not, you're a human, you're still an awesome person. Like, this is still like a fun thing that we get to do. And so just having those counter thoughts that you can have prepared to battle anything negative that sweeps into your mind, because that's not who you are. You're still this other person, and just being prepared as that comes. And then also just celebrating, like, finding something to celebrate that either happened in your race or after the race, or, things like that, because you still did accomplish something really great, and there is still something to be celebrated within there. So just kind of keeping those positives in mind as the negatives do creep in.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Perfect. Coach Julz, did you have something for today?
Yeah, I've been getting asked recently a lot about post-race blues and all of that. And to kind of tie into a bow what everyone's been saying, you don't realize how you almost get emotionally attached to a race prep sometimes. And so when you go through the race and the race is done, I think that's where a lot of people get down on themselves, because you form this emotional attachment to a race. You did a lot of prep, you put your body through a lot, you maybe had to make some sacrifices, and then you do this race and it's only a couple hours and then it like disappears almost. And so it's very common and it's very normal to feel, depressed about that or to be down about that. But then also, to kind of Natasha's point, when you're tired, you're going to be stressed, you're going to be irritated, you're going to be inflamed. And so, not being super reactive a few days or even a week after the race of like, oh, now I need to do this to fix this during the race because, I sucked at that and all that, or, being depressed on yourself, just something that I've started to do post race is just kind of sitting with it and being like, almost like to Ashton's point, just being like, hey, could have done this differently, but that doesn't make me a bad athlete, or that doesn't make me a bad runner, and it's okay. And I just did something really cool with my body. So it definitely, post-race blues definitely is a lot of self-talk and working through it. And kind of, you almost have to be that third person of like, something I'll do is I'll be really, depressed and tired, but I'll be like, okay, but look at it like this. You just finished a race. You're supposed to be feeling like this. So just kind of always keeping that perspective and know that it's not going to last forever. So
awesome. Perfect. I'll jump in with the next one. So all of us do the sports because it makes us feel good. Like, there's a great endorphin rush every single time you go and work out. And so when you train up, especially for something like a big Ironman where your body needs recovery after the fact, and now for a week or two, you're taking away that thing that makes you feel good, you are, of course, going to feel crappy. And I can speak to that right now as a business owner who kind of chooses business over training. Well, any day I try to do that, I actually feel worse and I'm worse at my job. So now I'm at a point where I have to work out because it's going to make me feel better. So here's the thing that has definitely helped me is don't stop moving. So as soon as I'm done with an Ironman, I have made decisions where I'm like, hey, I'm going to take the week off or 2 weeks off and just do whatever. I actually feel way, way worse. However, if I just go and do just 20 minutes, splash around in the pool, 20 minutes, spin my legs, just that 20 minutes kind of hits that endorphin kind of rush and makes me feel good for the rest of the day. And you feel like you are accelerating the recovery because through movement, and you end up getting back to feeling better, back to your body feeling better and recovering quicker versus just like laying on the couch. Too many times I've actually been on the couch just laying, and I end up getting off the couch, my back hurts and my hip hurts. I'm like, I should have just kept moving, I would be okay. So anyway, I wanted to speak to that. You're best to just like set a schedule. And for some of us, we actually need a schedule for a coach, and you need to tell your coach that, like, hey, give me what to do, because I don't know, I don't want to do too much. And then the coach is just going to put on there, 20-minute spin, 20-minute run. But some of you want to do it loosely and just kind of have that mental refresh from a schedule. Great. Let your coach know that and set a finite timeline for that. There's something to knowing that, hey, I'm going to do this for 10 days and go on kind of however I feel, but move. And then in 10 days, I'm going to get back to it. And there's something freeing about that, because, you can kind of go have beers and do all these different things, but you're going to be back on track towards your next goal in 10 days time. Okay. Any of the other coaches? Coach Mike, did you want to weigh in on any of them?
Yeah, I was going to say, so probably the biggest thing too is like when you get done with the race, start to, through that process, like everybody's talked about here, the other thing you can do is start to reevaluate your goals, right? Moving forward. What are, did you hit your goals from the previous race? Were there things you can improve on, kind of like Ashton was talking about, and then kind of refocus your goals moving forward. And then the part of that too that I think is important is like, especially for first-time athletes who are hitting distances, right? So like if you're a first-time 70.3 athlete, then maybe your next goal is I want to do an Ironman, right? And that's kind of the progression. If you're a first-time Ironman athlete, that's the one that can get tough, because I think that there's a lot of intrinsic motivation there to do an Ironman, right? Because the first time it's like, hey, I just want to see if I can do it, right? So I think after you get done with that first one, trying to find the intrinsic motivation now to move forward, if you want to continue to do it, is super important. Because if you just go into it again with the idea of like, I just want to get faster, that may not be enough. For some it is, but for others, that may not be enough when you get deep into that next race block to make it to where you want to continue to go down that path. So look at everything around you, look at all your goals that you have set out, and then find your motivation, right? Continue to foster that intrinsically, externally, and then move forward. That's probably a bigger conversation, but that's something you can kind of focus on as you kind of recover from your previous race.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Coach Parker, are you able to chat? I know you had some things to weigh in.
Yes. So what I did this time and I found was great is I actually just went home. So I went home, visited my mom, dad, and really, I know Natasha gave me a few workouts, and for some people having that schedule, as you said, is very helpful. For others, like you mentioned, just having that mental reset. And so what I find, just really listening to what your body wants to do, or especially like your mind. I know there's definitely a time and place when you want, power through everything. If you don't want to do something, get it done. 3 days after an Ironman is not when you want to do that. If you really for example, like me, I showed up to the pool, what was it, a few days ago, and I just looked at the water. I had my swimsuit on, my swim cap on. I was like, I don't want to swim today. And so I turned around and I went in the sauna. So it's just definitely now, if you're 4 weeks out from your Ironman or triathlon, then yeah, you probably should get in the water and do that workout. But I think just because I find the mental toll that a triathlon Ironman specifically takes is pretty much, it takes me longer to recover from that than the physical toll. So just taking that full mental reset and really not pressuring yourself to do anything. Go I pretty much just got in on workouts that my friends are doing, joining them. I just found it much more relaxing. And as Natasha said as well, just keeping I'm moving, I'm doing these workouts, but it's not like I'm not giving myself any pressure. I turned off all the paces for my swim times. I did a 4x50 descent, but I didn't look at the clock whatsoever. So just not looking at your paces, going off by effort, keeping everything easy, and just really being able to reset and so then you are excited when you come back to training.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, guys. And another takeaway of what he just said, as far as there are some days to not look at your clock. And it's not just in recovery, that this is middle of the week, normal training week. if you know you're tired from the weekend and Monday, for example, Monday is not the day to look at the clock and really be like comparing your paces. Monday is the day to recover from the weekend, be able to set yourself up for the week ahead, and then work on your form. And that means slowing things down and not worrying about your pace whatsoever. So same thing, you're tired, but you do want to go run. Don't even take your watch sometimes and just have that mental refresh, but know that that run is benefiting you in preparing the body for the next day's training. Okay.
Kristen just mentioned this in the chat. And I want to say this because it's important. Taking the time to give back to the people around you is huge, because inherently this sport is extremely selfish at times, right? Like you spend a lot of time on yourself, and these people around you, whether you're married, have kids, in relationships, whatever, friends, like these people around you are supporting you. And so if you come out of a race and immediately just start talking about, here's the next one we want to do, then like that can wear on those people around you too. So try to be vigilant about that coming out of a race, and just say, hey, let's take some time. Like I want to spend some time with you guys, like just to say thank you for essentially putting up with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's funny, Coach Mike, I was actually going to go to some of the answers here some had given, and Kristen had a good one. And then Brandon, honestly, this helps. I know a lot of people is having something on the schedule. Like if you finish a race and then you have nothing on the schedule and you're kind of stuck, signing up for something else or a new goal is here. What Susan said, that really does help you kind of reset and then refocus on the next thing. I know Coach Katie's on the call. I know she had a couple things to weigh in before we close out here.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it's been covered that I do too, but I definitely have tried to be better, especially after this last Ironman, of like listening to my body and not jumping right back in, because I definitely go to I'm not good at taper and I get real antsy. And so then after race, I do jump in too early. So this time I really just listened to my body and slept more and took lots of baths with Epsom salts and just relaxed. But I was going to speak to the family stuff. So I have 2 kids. And definitely have to actually had this conversation with Mike Cross multiple times, but I have to sacrifice more than I would like to, whether it's even just my own sleep throughout training. And that's still though, mom's tired or mom's cranky or mom's hungry or sore or whatever. And so I really tried the next week after a race to cook really good dinners for my family and be super present with my kids and not be looking at Training Peaks and not be looking at what's coming or data in front of them, and just really have some good, deep conversations with them, like in the car or at dinners, just to really reconnect after they've been so awesome of cheering me on at the finish line. So definitely, I was going to mention the family thing. So I love that it was already brought up.
Perfect. Awesome, you guys. Before we dive into some other practices some of the coaches use just to try to get their body back on track after a big race, I want to talk to just 3 more things. Kind of been mentioned already, and I'll go over them really quickly. But I do this now as well. Mike has actually caught me. For me, recovering from an Ironman is spectating is like doing an Ironman. So we made the decision, no big business decisions, the 3-4 days after doing an Ironman. And that goes the same for you guys. So many times I hear someone do a race and maybe it didn't even turn out the way they want, or they're just having the post-race blues and they're making these big decisions on what their life is going to look like and over the next year, or what races they're going to do. And I would suggest, unless you've pre-signed up for something, and if you are suffering from the blues, that's not a time to make a decision on the course of the path you're going to go. So give yourself a week, 3 days, whatever it takes to get back into a normal mental frame of mind before making any big decisions. But granted, no big decisions during that time. The other thing is, so many of my athletes, the 2-3 days, definitely the first day, but the 2-3 days after, good race, bad race, they are so over analyzing it that how do I say this? I'm not going to say this correctly. They're not happy with their race for the most part, which causes post-race depression. And once you give it more and more time, you realize how well you actually did. And how well, so again, it kind of goes in line with the no big decisions. But if you can control emotional highs and lows for the next 3 or 4 days and let things sift through, and then really, as Alice said, journal how the race went, that's going to be very helpful for you guys as well. Ironman is such a hard race to put together. There's one thing to do all the training, but there's another thing to execute it all together on one day. And that just takes time, and that just takes experience. And so one thing I learned by doing multiple Ironmans is that there is no bad day, because there's something that you didn't execute upon, or something that you learned that you didn't know before, that's going to set you up really well for the next one. So if you can go into every single race knowing there's no bad race, there's only a learning opportunity, that's going to help with the post-race depression as well. So yeah.
Let me add to that too, because
Go
there's
ahead.
you said there's no bad days, and I totally agree with that, because the other thing too is like, if you showed up to the starting line, then you've beaten like 99% of the people in the world, right? Because like there's so few people that get this opportunity to do these types of things, whether it's financially, physically. Like the fact that, you know, we show up on race day to do this, I think we have to have gratitude for that. And so if you can live in that moment to know that like you're at the starting line and doing something that so many people wish they could be doing, then I think that helps kind of process through some of the negatives that can come up. And Ashton said it too, and I totally agree with this. Like as an athlete, as a competitor, you're always going to have that moment where it's like, I could have done this better, or I could have done that better. And one thing I used to always talk about when I coached football, I coached offensive line, so I had to coach 5 guys at once, right? And we all 5 of them had to work together. And we would talk about poise and having poise throughout a game, because during a football game, it's 60 minutes long, right? And there's all these highs and lows. There's things you can control and things you can't. And so we would always talk about having poise. And I think that translates over well, especially the longer you go with triathlon. So in terms of like distance wise, as you get into something like an Ironman, it's important to have poise throughout the day, before the race, during the race, and even after the race, and not ever get too high or too low, right? Emotionally, and just kind of try to live in the middle. Because I think that, you know, if you do get too high, then there's opportunity there for error. And if you get too low on yourself, there's opportunity there for you to sabotage your own race down the line, right? You get out of the water and you're looking at your watch and you go, I'm 5 minutes slower than I wanted to be. Well, that thought can translate all the way through the bike and the run, right? And so I think that just having that poise kind of is what we would talk about when I was coaching football, and I think it translates well into this situation.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I just to speak to that, the longer I've seen people do the sport, so you see some of the pros out there, they've been racing 10, 15 years. Good race, bad race, they move on. I mean, you saw not the average Joe Skipper, like he went off course, and I saw him on the run course and I said, go Joe. And he was like, I went the wrong way. You know, he's come to Texas, he's flew halfway across the world, he has sponsor money on the line, he has prize money on the line. And he was just like, and then he stopped, and then he had an interview, and it's like, you know, wanted to save my legs. I know it's totally different, but wanted to save my legs for another day, and this happens. It sucks. But he's been in the sport long enough to know that this stuff happens. And then I totally see that those that are kind of in this starting out, it's like little things go wrong and it's the end of the world. You know, not knowing that, hey, there's still going to be another race. There's going to be another race. And stuff is going to happen like that. So, okay, we're going to move on. I know we spoke to this last week a little bit, but any tips and tricks on just quick recovery after an Ironman that has really helped any of you? Julz, did you want to help?
Yeah, I can hop in. Well, obviously, you know, like we said, keep it moving, because, you know, that helps blood flow and, you know, endorphins and all of that. Something that I am now doing post-race that's helped me a lot is, I think, you know, Katie mentioned it, just spending a lot more time with my friends and my family, because that gives me an endorphin kick almost. And it just makes me really happy. And I think I get, you know, the people who are closest to me get to, you know, weigh in on some things and make me feel better about some things. And it almost makes me really excited for what's to come. So, you know, definitely I don't recommend, you know, isolating yourself, especially I think a lot of athletes, when they have, you know, a bad Ironman, bad 70.3, bad marathon, whatever it may be, the first thing they go to is isolating themselves, because just as human beings, that tends to be natural. But actually forcing yourself out, getting out there with your family, with your friends, is going to make such a difference that week or two afterwards. So that's been probably the key race recovery thing for me that's helped me feel really rejuvenated, other than moving. So
awesome. That's perfect. Yeah, another thing that's tied to depression as well as just feeling better post-race. I found in my career when I actually ate really well and just good healthy food, that made me recover quicker, but I also didn't feel as down. Obviously, when you eat really bad food, a lot of the times it can react negative to how you feel physically, but then emotionally as well. And so, especially if you have another race down the line, like actually, yes, have maybe that fun meal you're really looking forward to, but the sooner I actually moved on to just really good meals and good protein to help me recover, the better I felt overall, and the better I recovered and the better my mental mindset. So any of the other coaches want to weigh on just quick recovery tips?
I guess for me, just super quick. You kind of already mentioned Natasha before, but and Julz as well, like just moving. For me, it's no matter how much I hate it post-marathon, I'll go for 30 minutes the next morning. It's pretty miserable, but I usually feel better just getting that blood flow over the next like week or so. Just kind of shaking everything out, busting the garbage out of my legs. And with that too, if you don't want to run, aqua jog if you're a runner. Also another way to move, and just massage therapy. It's usually my go-to, weekly after big sessions anyways, especially after a big race. So.
Perfect. Yep, absolutely on all of those. Anyone else? Close us out.
This kind of goes along with the food, but drinking enough water is huge, and especially electrolytes. I mean, you lose so much on race day. And I find that whenever I'm dehydrated, I'm more sore. So if I can stay on top of hydration, that definitely helps, like Charlie mentioned, flush out, some of the soreness or anything that you have inside your body. So actually, it's funny, after an Ironman, water is the most disgusting thing to me. I cannot stand the taste of water. So if you have that, that's normal, but definitely just kind of like making sure that you're still staying on top of hydration. If you have to put, like electrolytes or like a Mio in it or something to give it flavor so it doesn't, taste like water, but just making sure that you're still drinking enough to, again, stay hydrated.
Yeah, that's true. That's so easy to just stop doing because you've stopped working out. And so you don't think you need to drink. You're sitting at your computer, you don't drink, and then you're just more dehydrated. So perfect. Anyone else, Katie?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I always do, like Natasha's mentioned before, but Epsom salts bath, but I don't just do it just after. Like I'll even do it like day 2, day 3, day 4. And then this time, for the first time ever, and I'm always going to do this now. So the second day, so it was Monday, like I competed Saturday. On Monday, I went and got a massage, and like right afterwards, I got an adjustment from my chiropractor, and it was like crazy the difference that I felt walking out of that appointment. So for me, that really helps just loosen everything up. But then, like Ashton said, like I can't say enough, like getting that hydration, and especially if you do massage or an adjustment afterwards, just because the amount of toxins that then are released, just making sure you're even flushing those out. So that's it.
Perfect. Hey guys, we have 2 more minutes. Any other coach want to weigh in? Okay. Yeah, guys, that's it. Guys, the final thing I'll just say is if you are struggling with post-race depression, like tell your coaches and let's talk through it. So many people want to kind of hide that, but you have to know it's like totally normal. It was totally normal for me through my career, and it became less normal the more like I armed myself with the tools to work through it, and those around me kind of knew and were able to help me. So kind of let your family know as well. I think that's super important that they can help you and be aware in any way as possible. So okay, guys, thank you for joining us. You guys have a good week, and we'll see you. Actually, we've got a special guest next week. You guys don't want to miss next week. We've got a nutritionist that just so incredibly intelligent. He was on our call here before, but he's going to talk about training nutrition and do a deep dive and answer your questions. So beyond that, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.